This episode is brought to you by the shows of the You Run Podcast Network, all available at yourunpodcast.com. Whether it's true crime or film reviews, even TV series deep dives, the You Run Podcast Network has you covered. So go and check out yourunpodcast.com today. Mark, hello. What do architects, engineers and male porn stars all have in common?
I don't know.
They only get famous from great erections.
I should have got that. That was very easy. Why did I not get that one?
I thought it was very easy and fits the tone for this week. Let's get into it.
You want to die tonight?
The dad jokes he tells sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. The passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Marc's overblown roundups. You run podcasts or a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled.
Hello and welcome to the You Run Podcast horror movie review with our brand new intro.
Incredible. I love that intro music. That is a bit of me, that.
That intro is the forever intro. It will never ever change again. I'm so pleased with it, and that is us now. We're set forever.
Good. I love it. I think that is a mainstay.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Like, it's very rare that I create something that after I've done it, I sit there and go, that is fucking incredible. But that is fucking incredible. Welcome to the show. My name is Scott.
My name is Marc.
And this is the horror movie review show run and controlled by all of you, our listeners. This episode, not so much, because we're still finding our feet with our new format and we're just playing with things and working it out. Next episode, you're going to get the first interactive feature of You Run Podcast 2.0. There is a game on this episode. It's a themed game themed around the movie, and Marc loves games themed around movies within this trilogy.
Of course, I can kind of guess where you're going to go with this.
It's not where you think, kind of,
Oh,
but
okay.
not quite where you think. You can get in touch with the show, send us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail. You can do that by going to Instagram or X, going to send a direct message, push and hold down the record icon, record, and like magic, next week or the week after, your voice will appear on the air. Make sure you give us a follow across Instagram. For me and Marc, we're at You Run Podcast and at VHS from the Crypt and at Reviews from the Crypt as well. Go and follow all three of those accounts because all three of them are amazing.
They are really, really good accounts. Some might say the best content on Instagram.
Some would argue the best podcast page in the entirety of social media.
No, you're narrowing it down too small. You're narrowing it down too small. Just the best content, regardless of category.
Yeah, fine. I'm happy with that. This is a movie review show. It is spoiler heavy. We will discuss things we like, things we don't like. We're going to have conversations that go wherever they go. We're going to have some facts. We're going to have a game, roundups and scores, and you can all get on with your day. Make sure you rate and review us. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and anywhere else you can. Today's movie, MaXXXine, is a continuation of X from 2022 and takes us on the journey following young Maxine Meeks as she makes it in Hollywood as no longer a mattress actress and a real actress instead. With Kevin Bacon,
I like that.
mattress actress, yeah. With Kevin Bacon making an appearance as a private eye hired by a mysterious man sent there to track Maxine down, and the pointless addition of the Night Stalker storyline. We'll talk about that in a bit. This movie has so much hype. The question is, does it give us a raging hard-on, or does it leave us with a limp, flaccid attempt at a thumb in a softie?
Where do we even go from that? Like, when you thought of that, where it was like, oh yeah, and then we'll pick the conversation up from here. Like, what was your thought process behind that?
My thought process behind that was the same thought process Ty West had when he wrote some of the narrative for this movie. Like, where do I pick up from that? Oh, well, we'll work it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go.
I'm going to kick this off by saying Mia Goth in this, as she has been in the last two movies, is phenomenal. The more I see her in not just this franchise, but every movie I see her in, she is getting better and better and better. And the rumors of whether she kicked someone or not, I don't think she did, maybe by accident. But even if she did, like, that doesn't take away how good she is an actress. She is incredible in this movie.
Yeah. And again, I just want to tie in a little bit to that whole kicking thing that they've done. Like, actors are synonymous with being arseholes. Like, Christian Bale is the biggest of the lot of them. Like, did you hear like his Terminator meltdown that he did on the Salvation set? Like, they're all assholes. Tom Cruise has countlessly been recorded for being an asshole. You know, like, I think when you get in the industry and gonna be like an understudy to somebody who thinks so highly of themselves, I'm not saying Mia Goth in particular does, but I'm just saying, like, it's a very frustrating environment to be in. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot to have to do. You're constantly questioning your performance on set and having to be in a certain mindset. It wouldn't take a lot, especially for me as a person, if I put myself in those shoes and I was in the zone and I'm trying to concentrate on my work and somebody did something stupid around me. It wouldn't take a lot for me to be like, oh, you fucking stupid little idiot, and kick off and be like, get out of my face. So when people live in this snowflake era where they're trying to cancel people and get them done and get money and lawsuits against people for things, I'm just like, man, just put yourself in their position and the environment they're in and what's expected of them in their work area constantly and daily. They're constantly on the edge of tension and pressure, and like, give them a break, man. You know, people make mistakes. We're all human. And I just think these whole accusation things that are flying around a lot at the moment to try and get people cancelled in such a way, I kind of think it's a little bit ridiculous. And I think people need to just back off and get a little bit of a reality check, you know? And I know I say that out of turn, not knowing much of the conversation that engaged between MaXXXine and Mia Goth and this understudy or whoever she was. I just think, come on, man.
Yeah, my favorite attempt at cancel culture at the moment is the Gen Zs trying to cancel Eminem, and just the rest of the world watching, going, like, the government tried to censor him and he just grew bigger. You do not stand a hope in hell. But please carry on, because it's hilarious. Because the more you push him, the more he's just going to push back.
And I've been listening to his new album that came out last week, and I just think some of the things he says in that album are incredibly, like, offensive and on the edge. And I have an apprentice who's like 21. So I put the new album in on the way home from work. I was like, oh, Eminem's new album's out today. We're listening to it, whether you like it. Like, oh, Eminem, fucking all this shit. I was like, mate, you have no idea what you're talking about. Shut up. Putting it on, he's like, see, you can't even understand what he's saying. I'm like, dude, you're from a completely different era. This guy is a god. Just pay attention, give the album a couple of listens, and it will change your life. I can guarantee you. And I think his new album's fantastic. It's very offensive. Very, very offensive in many ways, but that's what he's known for. That's what he does, you know. And it's like,
yeah, it's on brand. The same as me doing jokes about thumbing in a softie. Like, it's on brand. People come here expecting that. They don't come here expecting me to do like some highbrow review where I talk about the tonal pitches of the score. Like, they don't expect that here, and they don't expect to get like a very normal rap from Eminem. They expect it to be offensive. Speaking of tonal scores, the score of this movie is phenomenal.
Yeah, really cool. I'm a big 80s guy, and I'll be honest with you, when the trailer for MaXXXine came out, like, I've made it very clear throughout where I stand on Pearl and X. I don't necessarily hate those movies, but I think they're massively overhyped. And when I saw the trailer for MaXXXine and I knew it was going to be set in the 80s, I was like, yes, now we're talking. This is my jam. You know, like the music from the trailer, I was like, this is going to be bang on. And the music for this is like all the way through. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the casting's bang on as well. Like casting in this movie, like casting Halsey, she's fantastic. Casting Kevin Bacon in this is the best he's been in years.
Kevin Bacon. And one thing I appreciate about Kevin Bacon, unlike a lot of Hollywood actors who get their start in horror, refuse to go back to the genre. But this guy embraces his roots. You know, he knows where he came from. He knew what put him on the map. And he constantly keeps dipping his toe in the water within the horror genre, whether that be this movie or whether that be Stare of Echoes or whether that be the serial killer drama, The Following that he did. You know, he's not ashamed to go back to where he started. And I think that's worked in his favor. I mean, this guy's getting a massive renaissance in his career at the moment with his role as a villain in Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, which we spoke about last week. He was great in that. I know we didn't touch on him in particular, but he was fantastic in that movie. And I think him in this movie, as great as Mia Goth is, isn't a patch on what Kevin Bacon brings to the table with his Dick Dastardly persona and his whole private eye, sleazy detective approach that he brings with his southern accent, his Louisiana vibe that he brings. I'm like, yes, man, this couldn't be any more perfect from you as an actor.
Yeah, he in this is outstanding. There's a couple of scenes that we'll touch on as we go through where I was just in awe of how menacing and just like he's a genuinely scary dude in this at times. It's like,
yeah,
a couple of scenes in particular. One of the scenes is where like he's all cut up and bruised and he finds MaXXXine and he chases her through the vacant lot and they chases her all the way up to the Bates Motel. Like that is just like shit. He's gonna kill her. It's so cool. And
while we're there with the Bates Motel thing, so let's there is a lot, unlike the previous movies, while there is clear homages, especially in X, it's a whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe. This movie goes full toe in the water in terms of referencing horror movies, whether that be spoken about particularly on screen or physically showing them on VHS tapes, or I mean the conversation that MaXXXine has with the guy about getting your start in horror, which we mentioned about Kevin Bacon. They have that full-on open conversation in this movie, talking about people like Jamie Lee Curtis, etc. Where were you with it? Because it is a very different approach that Ty West has taken prior to this installment in terms of referencing horror movies.
I kind of liked it. I would say they handled the meta element of this better than most Scream movies handle it. It was there. It was very in your face, but the way it had been set up that they're on a studio lot and the bit where the director takes MaXXXine to the Bates Motel, she's like, this is where they film Psycho. This is the Bates Motel. There's the house. Like all of that. I was like, this is so cool. Because I imagine if you're on a lot like that and you're doing a horror movie and you've got a young actress who's got her first role in a horror movie, as a director, you would take them there.
Like, of course you would.
This
like,
is
look at this. This is a glamour.
Yeah. This is what I want you to achieve. I want you to make my movie a permanent set here like this. Like all of that I loved. And I love the story of MaXXXine trying to make it. Like that whole...
Yeah, because it picks up pretty much where X left off in terms of her arc as a character. And I think they do a good job of especially transitioning her growth from that first movie. I know we had Pearl and the timeline's a bit jumbled in terms of which movie is which, but in terms of picking up immediately after X and this being the sequel, not necessarily the closing trilogy, I think they do a good job of showing her growth as a character. She becomes very much a Sarah Connor from Terminator character massively. In this movie. She's had that time and that distance from that first movie, and she's trained, she's badass, she can look after herself, and she's a threat. She is genuinely a threat, and they do a good job of showcasing that very early on, where she's getting chased down the alley, and you're like, oh shit, he's going to catch her early on. Is this going to be a curveball in the movie? Are they going to kill her off early on?
they showcase it even earlier than that. So when she comes out of her audition, she walks past all the other girls who are all lined up. She's like, "You bitches may as well go home because I just fucking nailed that because I am a fucking star." And just
How
walks off. I was
Beyonce
like,
was that?
it was so cool. And like, all these other girls sat there. Oh, did she get it? Are we still going in? But like just that, and then she gets in her car and like just like wheel spins out of the car park. Like that whole segment, that was a great setup for me of like how they've made her like she ends X very much as a I am a fucking icon. You will die, old lady. Runs over her head and drives off. And this is now, I don't know, a year later, and that has just
I think it's
developed.
more than that, isn't it? I don't know
It
when
is,
X necessarily took place, but I would say this is what 6, 7, maybe even 8 years later, because they say she's had an extensive career in the adult industry. But where
yeah,
was X not her first time, or was
yeah.
she
X
already
was her
established and it was?
no, X was her first porno.
Yeah, because that was like the whole we're going to make a porno movie and this is going to be like the boom. So then she's had the boom, and now because they do a good job as well of explaining that she's getting older and she knows that
She has
lifestyle and that
she has a
career,
shelf life.
she has a shelf life, so she needs to take forward the next step. Which as well is a good way of transitioning the distance between the two movies.
Going
Again,
back to the alleyway though, I want to go back
yeah,
to the alleyway because you started there, and I went back just for that. But the alleyway scene is fucking awesome. I think
yeah,
is like the guy chases her down and she gets to so she walks down the alley and then he follows her down. She gets to the end of the alley and he's obviously been down there and bolted the gate shut, and she can't get out, and she turns around to go walk back out and he's just stood there, and you see him flick out like an 80s style flick blade, and she's
yeah.
frantically trying to get out, and then when he gets there she just spins around and puts a gun in his face. She's like,
Yeah, but the thing
"You
about it
fucked
that's
me."
so cool is that she like runs like a helpless final girl all the way to the end, like, oh no, don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. And then when she gets there and he gets close enough, she just turns around and you see her face just change. She's like, yeah, this is my ball court, bitch.
Yeah, and it's the fact she's like, "What were you going to do to me?" He's like, no, I was just
I was just
messing around."
playing. I was just messing
Yeah.
around.
She's like, oh, good, strip. He's like, what? She's
Oh,
like, strip all of your clothes. He's like, and you see him strip, and then she's like, get on your knees. I was like, is she gonna execute? I was like, she's gonna execute him. Like, this is horrific. And then she goes, suck it. And I was like, suck what? And she makes him give the gun a blowjob. I was like, wow, like
yeah.
that, that's another level of like degrading this man. And then she's like, lay face down. And I was like, she is going to execute him. I think if I was him, I may have rathered the execution over what she'd done to him.
Oh, I know. This made me get a very high pitched voice as it happened.
He's laying
I'll
down,
let you
and
take it.
yeah, like any guy will know when you lay flat on your face, your testicles hang down in between your legs, and they hang sort of below your ass cheeks. And as she steps over, she steps in between his legs, and with the heel of her stiletto boot, stamps on his testicle, and then twists her foot like she's stubbing out a cigarette. It is the most horrific thing. And you see it as well. That's what makes it worse.
Yeah, and the thing is as well about this scene in particular, regardless of whether she had a gun or not, like an immediate reaction for me would be to just roll over and kick her off. But he doesn't. He just lays there, spread like Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants, and just takes it. I'm like, oh my god.
Hey, SpongeBob. Hey, SpongeBob.
One thing I do
Yeah.
want to talk about is I know we mentioned earlier about how X was particularly focused on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sort of vibe, and then you've got the whole Wizard of Oz thing with Pearl. MaXXXine takes more of a Giallo style approach with its mysterious leather gloved clad killer that's on the loose. Where are you with the aesthetics of this movie and the stylization of it?
I like I like the aesthetic. I like all the super hyper neon, like overblown. It's almost like the 80s and they've just dialed up the neon for no reason at all. And like I like the leather glove, like all that stuff is so cool. But the problem is from the very start of the movie, I know it's not the Night Stalker that's after them. The Night Stalker, like red herring, is completely wasted on me because Kevin Bacon's character ruins all that. He sits there with Maxine and goes, "The man who sends me for you is very influential and very powerful." And I know that's not the Night Stalker. We covered it on True Crime. It was Richard Ramirez. He was
Yeah.
a druggie and an alcoholic. Like he was not the powerful man who's after Maxine. So he's not killing these people. Like it was really badly written. Like for that to be a red herring, it just didn't work for me.
No, and I think even regardless of that red herring being thrown in there, and whether you knew the case of the Night Stalker or not, which I don't know much about the Night Stalker other than the fact that it is Richard Ramirez and he doesn't cut his fingernails or brush his teeth. That's about as far as my knowledge goes with that stinky little man. However, it's clear that the result of who it is at the end, who it's going to be, like we know, given the fact that where things pick up from the final closing scenes of X, if you haven't seen X and you go straight into this movie, then you're a lunatic because you have to watch X before you watch this. I don't think you necessarily have to watch Pearl. I don't think it's relevant to watch Pearl before this, but I do think you need to watch X. And given the way that that movie ends and the way that this movie starts, it's very clear who the antagonist of this movie is before we even get to the end. So like the whole grand unveiling thing that we get at the end felt very underwhelming to me. I was like, yeah, but we already knew that. So like this closing moment where you're trying to showcase something shocking to us as an audience, we already knew, probably not only before the opening credit sequence of this movie, but probably before this movie was even shot, how you were going to end it. And I think they do handle that rather poorly and very anticlimactic in terms of this being the closing arc of a trilogy. I think this very much suffers at the hands of I can't believe I'm going to reference this in a negative way, but I think this suffers at the hands of the Halloween Ends phenomenon in terms of this feels more like an individual movie than it does like a conclusion to an already established story.
Yeah.
Which is a shame for me, I think.
Like there is no way you can see this as a conclusion. Like the way this wraps up, so her dad's the big bad, and like at the end of it, she ends up with her fame and her fortune and all the shit she wanted. This is not concluded. Like there's more to this. She's a raging psychopath who kills people without remorse. There's so much more. I'd rather they'd gone down the plot of Richard Ramirez was killing people, but it was actually Maxine Minx killing her competition. That's a better story.
I think that's one thing that gets lost in this movie. And I think given what they do in X and then in Pearl, I don't think Ty West and then obviously Mia Goth came on as a writer for Pearl and Maxine, and the two collaborated to make these two movies. I think neither of them, when writing X, especially Ty West originally, expected the character of Maxine to be as well loved as she was. Because in that movie, she is very much painted as the villain. But it feels almost in this movie that they try and rectify that as if to showcase her as being the victim. And I don't think that was necessarily the story that I wanted from this movie. I didn't want to see her get redemption. I didn't want a redemption arc from the character of Maxine. And that's pretty much what we get here.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really cool bits in this where she does showcase how ruthless she is. Like when she meets with Kevin Bacon, he's like, "Oh, you need to go and see my boss. Here's an address. You need to go there, go and see him." And she's like, "Fuck you, man." And then he's following her. He follows her off the studio lot, and she stops the car, gets out, and he's like, "I'm always going to be here, darling. I'm going to be like a shadow." And you see, like the camera shows her drop her hands, and she's got her keys through her knuckles. And I was like, "Oh." It's like he's going to get out and they're going to like have a bit of a scuffle. No, she goes over to the side of his window and mercilessly punches the shit out of his face for a good minute and a half, and then goes, "You come near me again, I'm going to fucking kill you." Gets back in her car and drives off. I was like, honestly, left me like stunned. I was like, shit, I didn't see that coming.
No, no. And again, like that's the side of her character that I wanted more of. That scene in the
Yeah,
alleyway, that fight scene with Kevin Bacon, even the execution of Kevin Bacon in the scrapyard where they drop the car, the crusher thing, and you see all his blood just drip from underneath the car. I didn't think he was going to die in that scene, I'll be honest with you. I was like, there's no way they're going to let him out and he's going to give them information to what they want to know. But no, they kill him there and then. And that shows that evilness within MaXXXine, and you can see the camera panning on her face, and she shows no emotion in that scene as he dies. And it's like, for me, that's the kind of story I wanted to have in this movie. I wanted to see an unhinged version of her in an 80s Hollywood setting, and then her fall at the end. But it wasn't. It was turned around to give her the protagonist element and her to come out on top. And it just didn't feel right for me. It just didn't sit well with what was already established from her character in the previous movie.
No, see, it didn't for me either. Like, I love the way I love the way they set up Kevin Bacon. I love the fact that they do this thing where she does all of her makeup, and like that setup where she's gone out clubbing, she looks outstanding. Like that
Adam and the
costume
Ants
is,
reference looks amazing.
yeah, it is brilliant. And like when she lures him out, and then they get him there, and it's her manager who's like, "I'll protect you no matter what," because she opens up to him and goes, "Look, I killed a couple of people," and he's like, "Yeah, don't really care. I'm going to make a fortune off of you. So, yeah, whatever you need." And like, it's
Yeah.
him and his like bodyguard who end up crushing Kevin Bacon, and she just watches. Like, all of that is fabulous, and that is the dark, nasty side of Hollywood I wanted to see. But under that, they throw in this message about like they try and play with satanic panic, and they don't get it quite right. Like this whole Satan is Hollywood, like
Manson
satanic.
cult thing, yeah.
Yeah, like that was a real thing that they don't capture it very well. And they also throw in this underlying arc of a female director trying to make it big, and this is her one shot at doing it. And Maxine is the underdog star, and like that doesn't fit her character for me. She is
No.
a merciless killer. Like I wanted to see her trying to make it, and maybe the director scuppers her, so she kills the director, and we get another director on board that maybe she sleeps with to ensure she gets her role. Like that's the
Yeah.
dark, nasty story that I wanted this to be.
Yeah. And I think that was the story that this character deserved, which is why this feels like such an unfulfilling conclusion to this trilogy. You touched on the lawyer of her, the guy from Breaking Bad. I can't remember his name for the life of me. And even if I did remember it, I probably couldn't pronounce it correctly if you tried. He's an incredible actor, which brings me on to my next point. There is a lot of people in this movie, especially showcased in the trailer, that we were going to get a lot from. Halsey being one of them, the singer, the American singer pop star,
Yeah,
who's is like street walking with Maxine early on, and then Lily Collins as well. Lily Collins is fucking awesome. She is an incredible actress, and she was highlighted as being a big part of this movie. And it feels like her, the lawyer, Halsey, all of them just play cameo roles in this movie, and it's a shame because they would have brought so much more to the story had they focused more upon Maxine as a character than it being more this whole thing that we do eventually get. And it's hard really to dissect this movie in a way without tying in everything that's come before it, because this is set up as being a concluding arc to a trilogy,
yeah,
but they've just taken it in the wrong direction for me. I just felt like everything that they were trying to establish is great, and it is a good standalone movie, which X is a great standalone movie. Pearl is a great standalone movie. Maxine is a great standalone movie. But when you establish it and market it as a concluding chapter to a trilogy, this is the movie where you should be tying in the previous two movies and bringing everything full circle. And I don't feel like they did that here. And again, it's very parallel to what they did in Halloween Ends.
yeah. And like the other thing, I find there's lots of characters in here that are pointless. That if you remove them, it doesn't change the narrative of the story in any way. Her friend
Roommate.
who works in the video store,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's a great character. I think his character and Maxine having a friend is a good thing. Like, I think that's a very clever plot device to use, but he doesn't do anything. He tells her where she gets delivered a VHS tape, which is the tape of her crimes in X,
Yeah.
and he works out where that's come from, and then he gets killed from it. But it doesn't do anything only to motivate her to find out who's done it. And I don't think
No.
it does enough. And the two cops, like that, the guy cop and the girl cop, you got bad cop, good cop. The bad cop guy, like, he's just
terrible. He's a comedic actor, and I know him from comedic roles, and he should stay in that comedic lane. He didn't sit well with the tone of this movie, I found. Like, I like him as an actor, and I'm not taking anything away from him for that, and I think he did a good job in this movie. But I think because his face is synonymous with that comedic element, it's like basically putting Seth Rogen in that role and expecting us to take it seriously. You just couldn't do that. And I think that is a terrible miscast of him. I think the female detective, I think her name is Rebecca Monahan, if I'm correct. She's amazing. She is an incredible actress. And again, very underutilized. And it's like you mentioned earlier about the guy with the videotapes. I can't remember his name, but he's her friend. How much better would it have been for him to be so alluded to what Maxine is as a person, and then to discover her past and it play a vital role in the story? Like these, it's like all the key elements to this movie are right there in front of them, and they don't utilize any of them in the right way.
No, there's so much they could do with this. Like if it was me, I'd have made the male cop corrupt. He'd been working for her dad. I'd have made the female cop the righteous of the righteous, who ends up taking out the other cop, and then she helps Maxine out of some misguided guilt, and Maxine kills her. Like, I'd have gone, like, you had the option to go so dark with this. But I think,
and I mean, with the female cop, they kind of do that in a certain way. Like, she is very naive to the situation, and you do kind of get her. Like, I would have liked to seen her and Maxine survive the ordeal, which you kind of get a little bit towards the end, where she gets stabbed in the eye with a cross. She's like, oh, cool. Yeah, I did it. It was very fucking cool. And it's like, you would have liked to have seen those two come out of it together. But, like, she feels like she saved Maxine, but really you kind of get this different perspective where you see Maxine doing stuff that she's unaware of, but she's still there to help Maxine. There's a lot of things that are put in motion that have the potential to elevate this movie to being a fucking fantastic movie. But for us as horror fans, and especially as movie fans, we see all these pieces start to fall into place, and then none of them seem to go anywhere. And then when they get those arcs cut short, you're like, oh, well, that's very cool kill, but that's very disappointing that you've just wasted that character you've just set up for the past 40 minutes.
Yeah, see, I'd done that all the way through. Like, when you had her friend got killed, and like the practical effects where they've done the burn on her cheek with the pentagram, like, all of the effects in this movie is incredibly high production quality. It's incredibly glossed. If I'm honest, I think it is a highly glossed movie with incredible cast that doesn't really do anything. Like, Maxine's not really, like, she gets her big break. She does this movie. Also, the bit where they show you a clip of the movie and you've got like the lightning going and the girl picks up. I want Ty West to direct that sort of horror movie, because the direction on that, like, couple of scenes, I was like, wow, that's like proper gothic horror.
Yeah.
And I think he can obviously do that. I want to see that movie.
And the thing is, with Ty West as a director, he is incredible. He is an incredible horror director, but he's beginning to suffer from Rob Zombie syndrome. Stop writing your own movies, man, because you are not a good writer. It's as simple as that. And I think he is an incredible director. He knows how to pull incredible shots, incredible aesthetics and tones and variations of musical periods in time. Like, these three particular movies are all set in very different eras with very different aesthetics. And I think he does a great job of pulling them to have their own individuality, and every single one of them look flawlessly. However, as I've said with X, and I've also said again with Pearl, and I am now going to say it again with Maxine, the writing is just not up to scratch with these movies to justify the hype around this trilogy.
Yeah, and you know, I'm actually going to agree with you, and we're going to take a break. That's what we're going to do. And I need to take a break because I agreed with you on a movie that I thought I was going to adore. So anyway, after this episode, why not check out the Paranormal Misfits podcast? Hosted by Chrissy and Nino, this show looks at everything paranormal, conspiracy theories, murder. They also do reviews into horror movies too. This show has it all. Also available on the You Run Podcast Network, the Horror Friendly Podcast, hosted by Charlie, Katie and Chantel. This hilarious review podcast covers movies from the past, the present and everything else in between. You do not want to miss this great addition to the You Run Podcast Network. And all of these shows and many more are all available at yourunpodcast.com. Let's do some facts. You know, in this, there's a Hollywood star of fame that MaXXXine puts a cigarette out on.
Yes.
This is Thedra Barbara, and this is the actress that Pearl aspired to be, and that she named the crocodile after, which I thought was a cool little nod
I didn't
back
pick up on
to
that. That is cool.
both movies. MaXXXine wears a We, OUI t-shirt, which is reference to an adult men's pornographic magazine that was available in the 80s. So this is a reference to that. Molly Bennett, you mentioned her earlier.
Yep.
So this is Lily Collins. She talks to MaXXXine outside the trailer when she's giving MaXXXine advice on being in Hollywood. And she says, us girls need to stick together, which is a direct reference to Pearl when it's us sister-in-laws need to stick together. There's lots of
cool.
referencing back, which I felt like when I started seeing them and spotting them, I was like, oh, that's really clever. That's really clever. But the writing was shit. Anyway, so the filmmakers for this, you'll really appreciate this fact because it's the kind of guy you are. They went old school. Everything in this movie was shot, filmed and edited on equipment that was available in the 1980s.
Yeah, and it shows. And I appreciated that a lot throughout this movie. I think visually it has that tone. The gritty side that they showcase of LA in this movie, I think is done probably better than any other movie that I've seen. I think it's really, really incredible what they've done in terms of cinematography and direction here.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it briefly. So in January 24, it was James Hunter filed a lawsuit against MaXXXine, Ty West and A24, not MaXXXine, Mia Goth, Ty West and A24 for an alleged kick on set. I'm going to say something now that may be very controversial. If this happened to the extent that James Hunter claims, A24 would have paid him out by now because they would not have wanted this causing any noise around the release of this movie. And the fact they haven't paid him out and the fact they're willing to take it to court makes me believe he's full of shit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what when they say a kick, like Mia Goth's a little woman. Do you know what I mean? This is a dude claiming that he was kicked by a little girl. This is like playground shit. You know what I mean? He's clearly just reaping on the attention of the success of these movies and trying to get a payout.
Yeah, that's where I am with it. The final fact for this just made me smile so much. So this was delayed due to the Screen Actors Guild strike, the SAG strike. The final shot of this movie is MaXXXine cutting a line of cocaine with her membership card to the Screen Actors Guild, and it made me chuckle a lot. Which I like. That is just the pure like, you delayed my movie, so yeah, you're in the Screen Actors Guild, you do cocaine. Brilliant.
I like that because it was a nice callback as well to X. When she's sniffing coke in the mirror.
Yeah, and this time instead of looking up and going, "You're a fucking star," she looks up and goes, "You're a fucking movie star." And like you get the shots of her with the premiere with all her hair waving, like all of that stuff. It's like it's shot beautifully. It's a beautiful movie. All of Ty West movies are beautiful movies. This one just doesn't have as much substance. It's time to play a game.
Okay. Is it not my porno?
Doing, step bro.
It feels a little bit like it's not my porno.
It's not. That's not my porno. This is a rehash of a game we played a very, very long time ago. It's called Porno Made Me. So this is where I give you a celebrity, and you're going to tell me whether they got their start in the porn industry. Now, bear in mind we've played this game before. I had to go
There's a
back
lot
and
of
see who.
celebrities that do this. Then
I was surprised, so I had to go back and try. So I went back and listened to the episode we'd done that on. And I was like, right, so I need to find 8 more celebrities who Mark will actually know who they are, who got their start in porn. It took me about a minute. Like, it was so easy to do. It blew my mind.
really, wow.
Mm.
Okay,
Um,
it's going to be
we're gonna
interesting
give-
then.
Yeah, and there's some big names in here as well, like big A-list Hollywood celebrities in this list. We're going to kick it off with Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz. Why do I recollect a story of her trying to get all of that removed? I feel like she did, but I also feel like she's too presentable to. I'm going to say no with Cameron Diaz, but for some reason in the back of my mind, I'm remembering like some sort of story of her trying to get everything removed off the internet of it.
Yeah, that's because she starred in a softcore porn movie and paid millions of dollars to her agency and her team to try and get it removed. It's available by searching Cameron Diaz porn. You'll find it in about a heartbeat. Not
I'm guessing you have.
Not that I looked. Freddy Krueger, Mr. Robert England.
No chance. He's got his start by fucking sweeping leaves in Halloween back in 1978. I don't think he was in porn.
No, he was definitely not in porn. Blake Lively, the beautiful, stunning wife of Ryan Reynolds.
No chance. No chance.
You sure?
Not now you've just asked me if I'm sure or not. Wasn't she like from some reality TV show like The Hills or something stupid like that?
Yeah, no, she has never done porn. She is far too
squeaky
clean
clean for that.
Yeah, too squeaky clean. Jackie Chan, as in Rush Hour 3, Jackie Chan.
The thing is with this dude as well, like I feel like that's the kind of thing he maybe would do to pay bills back in the day.
So
who
you
would
go
want to watch that? Who would want to watch some little Asian man?
Are you going to go yes or no for a Jackie Chan?
I'm going to say yes.
He did. He starred in a porno. He didn't partake in any of the sex, but there is a shot of him full nude, kind of going, "Oh my god, what's going on?" Yeah, it's something.
Don't want to see that one.
Ryan Reynolds, the husband of the beautiful Blake Lively, the stunning Ryan Reynolds, who I have kind of a man crush on.
Yeah, he's a guy. I'm going to say no, because I feel like at this point in his career, with the amount of Deadpool movies that he's made, if he had done pornography in the start of his career, I feel like he would have made an in-joke about it in one of the Deadpool movies. So I'm going to say no on that.
You think he would have had it playing in the background with someone watching it on a TV?
Yeah, I think he would do so. I think he's the kind of guy who would own it enough to do something stupid like that. So I'm going to say no.
You're correct. He has not done porn. However, he is known for exposing himself on occasions on set to select members of the cast who he knows are okay with it. One of these is Hugh Jackman, who has complained about it numerous times across social media.
I can't wait for Deadpool 3. I think this is going to be the movie of the year. And I know I've said that about Alien Romulus, which I still stand by. But I think this is going to be non-horror related movie of the year is Deadpool 3. I think it's going to be an event.
It's definitely going to be an event. The fact that I heard the other day that Wesley Snipes is reprising his role as Blade to be in this movie just blew my mind.
I read an article the other day that the guy who's just been cast to take over as what's the main villain of the MCU at the moment who's just been sacked for
Oh
beating up his
yeah,
girlfriend?
one who's taken over as Kang.
Yes, Kang,
Kang
the
the
guy
Conqueror.
who's just been
Yeah.
taken over as Kang. He put like a statement out saying, "Oh yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be Kang in the Marvel universe and being the new head of Kang and stuff, and like getting to work alongside Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman." I'm like, "Oh, so you're in Deadpool 3 then?" It's like, spoiler alert, we've just got our new Kang in Deadpool 3.
But yeah, I'm really excited for that movie just because I know how stupid they're going to go with it. Like,
Yeah, and I think it's hit that point now where the expectations are so high from it that they're just going to get an insane amount of backing. Whatever Ryan Reynolds has come up with, whatever he has envisioned to do with that movie, I think they're just going to be like, yes, just do it. And
yeah,
whatever you do from this point on, we will rework the Marvel universe around it.
yeah. The thing is, the Marvel universe is such a state. They probably just went to Ryan Reynolds. Look, fuck around with this and tell us what we've got left, and we'll work from there. That'll be great. Like
Yeah, and I think
any
that's what they're going to
characters,
do.
any characters you're not happy with, just kill them off. Like, do what you want, start new storylines, bring characters back. Like, we really don't care. Just give us something fresh to work with because we're in a corner and we don't know where to go.
We're on our ass and we need help. Fix this for us.
So, Dustin Diamond, if you don't know who that is Screech from Saved by the Bell.
Yes.
Yes, he has.
That wasn't my answer, but yes, he has.
Oh, he has. He made a movie called Saved by the Smell, which was a homemade pornographic movie that he leaked online with the hopes of becoming a porn director. He never got to do that, but there is a sex tape if you want to see it with Screech playing Screech in a porno.
Oh, it's really hard because he's died now, and that's really sad and tragic. That would be a tough wank, I think, given the situation.
Yeah, and I'm not being funny. How on earth did he not call it Saved by the Bell End? Channing Tatum, sorry.
Yes, I feel like I don't know if he has, but I feel like given his fame and his Magic Mike status, I feel like that's something. Yeah, I'm going to say yeah on that one.
He has. Can't find any evidence of it, but he's openly admitted that he has, and it's not something he's particularly proud of, but he's not ashamed of it either. But if it exists, it is hard to find. I looked for all of these to verify my findings.
The quiz. Yeah, you've got to make it authentic.
Well, exactly that. Like, if I'm going to do research and like Cameron Diaz I'm told she's in a porn, I need to check that before I put that information out into the world.
Just for research purposes only, of course.
Exactly. And just in case anyone is curious, I still do all of my research on my work PC. Your final one, the legendary, the iconic Wes Craven.
No, surely not. Then again, I don't know. No, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no on that. I don't think so.
He has never starred in a porno movie.
I bet he's directed a few, though.
As a main cast member. He has, however, appeared on camera numerous times in background shots and other things. He's directed several, like double-digit number porno movies under different pseudonyms of names as he was up and coming as a director. So he never directed. There's not a Wes Craven porno movie, but there is a Wes Craven porno movie under different names.
There's not officially titled directed by Wes Craven, but he did direct a fair few.
Which I did watch a bit of one that he had directed, and I have to say it's one of the best directed porno movies I've ever seen. Like, they start having sex, and I'm like, no, I want to know what's going on. So that is another edition of Porno Made Me. I think that may be the last one of those.
I think you'd struggle to find any more than that.
There were more, but they were more obscure people.
Yeah. And I think the more obscure they are, the more obvious the answer would be yes.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, if you're up and coming in Hollywood and you're struggling to pay bills and you're a struggling actor and you've got loads of irons in the fire, but nothing's coming off, and someone goes, "Look, do you want to make a porno and make a quick couple of $1,000?" I personally think that's an easy answer. Like, for
Yeah.
me, that would be an easy answer. It'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, why not?" Like,
Too right. I'd do it now.
yeah. See, I'd be all right until I've got like an audience. I think the audience and people saying, "Right, stop there." No, I can't stop here. You don't understand. Like, I'm at the point. I need to keep going. Like all of that.
I
Like,
think I'd embrace it like a football game. People cheering you on.
what you go and sit on the side and have like a slice of orange at half time.
Yeah. Medic, medic. People running on with a stretcher because I've got like a pulled hamstring.
Like, surely it'd be a pulled groin. Surely.
Most probably.
You can round this one up first. I'm going to let you. I think mine will be slightly more positive than yours, but I don't know. You go first.
100%. Yours is definitely going to be more positive than mine. So again, we find ourselves in a catch-22 with a Thai West horror movie directed within the whole X universe. And it's not going to be too dissimilar to my roundups for X and for Pearl. I think this is a beautifully directed movie. I think it's incredibly well cast. Again, the writing just fails. The writing fails. It goes nowhere, or at least when it does go where it's supposed to go, it finds itself void of the things that have come before it. It's a very unsatisfying conclusion to what is supposed to be an end to a trilogy. One thing that I really did appreciate is the practical effects in this, which, if you take in contrast to X and Pearl, those movies also utilize practical effects in a very, very good way, but they do them in a very realistic way. Whereas you find within MaXXXine, they're done with a very 80s level B movie aesthetic that works so incredibly well. Like, considering the whole tone and vibe of the movie, when you see these kills and you see these executions and you see the overblown gore and violence, but it's done like it's on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic. And people might look at that and be like, that looked bad. But it's like when you look at X and Pearl and you've seen how incredible they can perform in terms of showing the realism in these gory effects, you have to realize that it's done here purposefully to fit within the era of the movie that they're making. And I think for that alone, it's very commendable to commit to that sort of level and do it to that budgetary restriction purposes. And I think I really appreciate stuff like that. I really appreciated also the inclusion of the 80s video rental store stuff. You know me, I'm a big VHS head. So seeing stuff like that crop up here in all its glory looked really, really cool. Kevin Bacon is without a doubt the standout for me in this movie. I think he outshines everybody else around him. And unfortunately, considering how great the cast is with people like Lily Collins and Halsey and the guy from Breaking Bad, I don't feel like they had enough to do considering how well advertised they were with their involvements in this movie. They're on the cover of magazines, they're showcased as in the trailer, they're like hyped up that they've been cast in this movie and they're barely in it. And the biggest disappointment about that is that their stories and their arcs and their involvement in MaXXXine's life could have been utilized in such a higher way that would have amplified this whole movie to a different level. Instead, it falls victim of becoming an 80s slasher and a who's done it. But unfortunately, we already know who's done it before we even get there. And I think that's one thing that this movie really suffers from is how underwhelming it is and how, in a way, kind of insulting it is to the audience's knowledge of this world. Like, we know where this is going. Throw in a curveball, do something different, actually flesh out MaXXXine's story to a point that makes sense to what you set up in X, because to me this feels very devoid of anything that's come before it. This isn't the art that they've established for her already. And again, it just keeps bringing me back round and round again to the writing throughout this trilogy. Like, it's inconsistent, it's underwhelming, it sets up things that go nowhere, but everyone seems to be just eating it up like it's the best thing in the last century of horror. And it's not, unfortunately. Visually, it is, because Ty West is an incredible director, but he's not an incredible writer when it comes to movies. And unfortunately for me, that is one thing that really stood out to me the most in MaXXXine. It didn't live up to the expectations. And I feel like this movie had the potential to make me look back on Pearl and X and be like, yeah, do you know what? You did it. Yeah. This movie tied it all together in a way that made me look back on those two movies and be like, yeah, this makes sense now. Everything you set up in those movies that didn't make sense has now been tied together in a nice, neat bow, and I can watch them all in order and know that I'm going to be fulfilled by the time I get to the end of it. Yeah, but I didn't get that.
There were so many options. Like, obviously, MaXXXine killed Pearl and Howard in X. Like, have a family member. Have it be a family member of Pearl who's hunting down MaXXXine. They're the one who's paying for Kevin Bacon. Like,
which is where I was hoping it for to go.
Yeah, but it tie it back to Pearl. Like, that would be not only tying it into X, but tying it into the original. Like, that would be so clever. But they just took the, like, I don't know. It feels like they took
easy route.
Yeah.
They did. They took the easy route with it, and the writing was very underwhelming. One thing I will say is this movie deserves a massive appreciation for being the most consistently average. And for that, it deserves some sort of applaud, I suppose. Like, it is average. It's average at best. And yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up. I don't know what I scored the other two, but one thing that I have found with these movies as they go on is I was underwhelmed by X, and I was left with more questions than I had answers to. I then watched Pearl, which made me like X more than I did the first time I watched it. I didn't necessarily like Pearl, but now I've watched MaXXXine, I like Pearl more. So it seems to me like every time there's a new installment that comes out, I find myself appreciating the movie before it more. And that's not necessarily because it does such a good job with the sequel of establishing everything that's come before it. It just kind of makes me look back on it and be like, actually, seeing this now, that one wasn't as bad as I really thought it was. And that's not a good thing for the terms of the movie. So I don't know what I scored the previous ones at, but I'm very, very middle on the road of this. There's a lot I appreciate in terms of the Giallo aesthetics and all the 80s vibe that it has, the acting, the score. But unfortunately, I'm just underwhelmed once again by Ty West's X trilogy, and I can't give it any more than a 2.5 out of 5.
Middle of the road is average, not good, not bad. It's just not a bad score. It's kind of where I thought you'd be with this. This movie didn't deliver what I wanted it to deliver. I wanted this dark story arc for MaXXXine. I wanted MaXXXine on a rampage in private. I wanted her to be killing people and then pinning it on the Night Stalker. Like, I wanted it to be that. I wanted it to be so much nastier than it was. Like, we got glimmers of it, like where she beats the life out of Kevin Bacon, where she stamps on the guy's balls, where they crush Kevin Bacon, like when she takes out her dad and like the cops there and she still blows his head off, and that practical effect's awesome. Like, all of that, like, I wanted so much more of that, and instead we got this, I don't know, overly bloated, message-filled story that rode along with it. And I'm not saying I wasn't invested in it. I liked the idea of a female director trying to make her way. I liked the fact that her agent had this dark past. I liked the fact that she worked in the strip club from The Crow too, with the buddy booth.
They all have a message to say. All three of them have a message to say, and the message they do represent rings true. You know, it has a purpose, and it is very clear throughout. But the story that ties it all together and fulfills the rest of the movie as you're watching it, it's just not there.
Yeah, and I agree. And I can't say that this is the best. For me, it is Pearl X this, but I still enjoyed this movie. As much as I've got issues with it, they're issues I can't control. And I'm just judging what I saw. I think Mia Goth's amazing. I think Kevin Bacon's amazing. And I think those two prop this movie up enough that I would watch this again. I'd watch this again to see their interactions. There'd be lots I would skip to get to these bits. But this is a decent slasher movie. Um, I can't score it as high as X and as Pearl, which both got 5 out of 5s from me. I remember that because I argued that they were both perfect movies. This one's not. Ty West really dropped the ball with this. Um, I think I'm going to go a 3.5 out of 5 because I still enjoyed it. It's definitely above average, but it's definitely not his best work. Not even close.
You mentioned this being a slasher movie. I don't think you could necessarily consider this being a slasher movie at all. We get like two scenes that would be regarded as slasher based, if you like. I
Yeah, we
don't
get a
think you
lot.
could consider, but that's one of my annoyances with it. Is it was marketed as that. We were going to get MaXXXine in the 80s with a slasher on the loose. We don't get that at all, not even in the slightest.
No.
It's very underwhelming, and that's the only thing you can say about this movie is that it is very underwhelming.
Yeah, it's definitely underwhelming for me from what I expected, but I don't know if there was an element of hype that I took into this that I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then when it wasn't, I was so much knocked back on it, which is why I scored it a 3.5. Like I think in 6 months I might watch this again and I might score it higher or I might score it lower. But I still enjoyed it. It was a good movie. I love the character of Maxine. I just think they handled her poorly in this.
I think the way you mentioned, yeah, on rewatches it might get better. I have to agree with that because I do feel like the previous two movies do get better on rewatches.
Yeah.
So like I've seen X like 3 or 4 times now. I've probably seen Pearl maybe twice, maybe 3 times, and I do feel like every time I do revisit them, I do focus less on what disappointed me about that movie and highlight the things that I did enjoy more, which makes me enjoy my run through of it a little bit better. And I do feel like MaXXXine is probably going to be another one of those movies where it didn't deliver what I wanted it to. But if I go back to it in 6 months or a year's time, I'll probably be able to step outside of that and appreciate it a little bit more for what it actually is, as
Yeah.
opposed to what they were trying to make it be. So I do feel like as a whole, this trilogy is one of those ones that does get better with age.
Yeah, and
But
and
as
I
it
think
is now, yeah,
I think
just
I
meh.
think I think it'll be remembered as a good trilogy. I think everything hinges for Ty West on what he does next, and I think he needs to step away from this franchise and go and do something else. But we'll see.
Yeah, and get a writer.
Yeah, maybe we should start a GoFundMe for him and Rob Zombie to get them decent writers.
And that's it though. Like that's what it boils down to. It is just a case of stop being greedy with creative control. Like you're not a writer, or you're a fantastic director, and you might have incredible ideas, which is what he probably had with these movies. Like he had a vision and he executed that vision perfectly in terms of how they look and how they present themselves in the era that they're trying to represent. I'm not going to take that away from him at all. He knew what he wanted to set out to do, and I think he did a very good job in doing that. But I think in terms of writing, he's just not there as a writer. He's a director and he's a
Yeah,
visionary. And I think maybe employing somebody to come on and tweak your script a little bit, or maybe just have a basic rundown of what your vision is, and then present it to somebody who actually is a writer, who actually knows how to string these plot points together and how to execute these theories and ideas that you have in a more digestible manner, and how to tie everything together full circle would be more beneficial to you as a director, because that is something that would sell your brand. And I think had he done that off the back of X, this would be the trilogy that everybody is talking about for the next 50 years.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's twice I've done it. Twice I've completely agreed. Anyway, that is it for another episode of Horror Movie Review. Me and Mark are going to be back next week, and we are going to be reviewing Get Out by Jordan Peele, our first dive into the Jordan Peele universe.
Nervous about this one.
I'm not. We'll be fine. It's not like it deals with any delicate subjects around racism or anything like that. Like, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly that.
But until then, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this change and transition period. I hope you're enjoying the new format, and we will catch you all next week. So see you all later.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
You want to die tonight?
Late at night, I tune into your show, where you talk horror with a unique flow. Your voice is like sirens, draws me in, as you pick apart movies for murder and sin. The dad jokes you tell sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. Your passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Marc's overblown roundups. You run podcasts or a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled. But you run podcasts. You run podcasts, horror movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled. Thank you for taking us on this chilling ride, when nightmares roll free and comedy collide. With your podcast we laugh and cringe, but your content is so good